Now, coming to the pollen and pistil interaction. So, the interaction between the pollen grain and the pistil is it's called as a pollen-pistil interaction. So, pollination does not guarantee the transfer of the right type of pollen, that is a compatible pollen of same species as the stigma. Okay, so like we can't just be like, okay, there's pollination happening, so it's going to be a success. It will fertilize, and finally you will get like a new fruit or something like that. It does not happen like that, because pollination does not necessarily mean that the right type of pollen grain will come and land on the stigma. Pollen grain may come and land, but the stigma may not recognize this pollen grain. Okay, it could also be a foreign pollen grain, isn't it? It could be, maybe it's not from the same species. Okay, it has to be from the same species, right? What if some other species pollen grain lands on the stigma? In that case, that is not the right type of pollen grain, or it is not the compatible pollen grain. Okay, so pollination does not guarantee the transfer of the right type of pollen. Often incompatible pollen also land on stigma, like I just told you. The pistil has the ability to recognize the pollen. Okay, so it can recognize the pollen, okay, whether it is the right type or whether it is the wrong type. So the right type is called as the compatible type and the wrong type is incompatible. Okay, now if it is the right type of pollen, the pistil accepts the pollen and promotes post-pollination events, okay, which ultimately lead to fertilization. Okay, so let us say the compatible type of pollen comes and it sits on the stigma. What is going to happen is the pistil or the stigma will accept this pollen. Okay, there will be germination. Okay, these are the post-pollination events, germination. Then there will be formation of a germ tube. Okay, this germ tube then goes into the ovary, and then there will be fertilization. Okay, all this happens after pollination. But all this happens only if the pollen grain is the compatible or the right type. What happens if it is the wrong type of pollen grain? Then the pistil rejects the pollen by preventing pollen germination. Okay, so what is the pistil going to do? It will reject the pollen. So it is not going to germinate at all. Germination is nothing but the sprouting of the grain, okay, pollen grain, or one where it, as of now, the pollen grains are dormant or inactive, but it will become active on germination. That is nothing but germination, basically. Okay, when the pollen grain becomes active. Okay, so if it is the wrong type of pollen grain, the pistil will reject it. Okay, I hope you understood this pollen pistil interaction.
Yeah, so like, will it be mostly self-pollination? Because how could the pistil, recognize other plants' pollens?
Yeah, I'll tell you. See this. That's there in the next slide here. See, the ability of the pistil to recognize the pollen and then accept or reject it is through continuous dialogue between the pollen and the pistil. In the sense, what they're trying to tell you is any pollen that comes and lands on the stigma, okay, the pistil has an interaction with it, or there's a communication or dialogue with it. Okay, now how do you think this actually happens? They don't talk per se like how we talk. Okay, but this dialogue is mediated by chemical components of the pollen grain and the pistil. Okay, so the pollen grain releases some chemical compounds or components. The pistil has its own chemical compounds and components, and this will interact. Okay, if it is not compatible, okay, it will not accept the pollen grain based on the chemicals. So this is mainly the recognition is through the chemical components of the pollen grain and the pistil. Okay. Now, after acceptance, the pollen grain germinates on the stigma to produce a pollen tube through one of the germ pores. Okay. So what happens is once the pistil has accepted the pollen grain will germinate. Okay, germinate in the sense, can you see this on the right side? This is the stigma. Okay, and this is the pollen grain which has come and landed on the stigma. Okay, so it germinates in the sense it becomes active, okay, or it sprouts on the stigma to produce a pollen tube. Can you see this tube? It's going right down up to the ovary over here, this brown color tube. Okay. Now, how do you think this pollen tube, which is on the stigma, actually gets into the style over here? Remember, this is the stigma. This entire long thing over here is the style. And this last part down over here is the ovary, isn't it? So how do you think it forms a tube? See, this is forming a tube over. This is the grain. Okay, and then it starts forming a tube and it enters into the style to go to the ovary. Okay, so unless and until this pollen grain, which is like this, okay, and this is the exine, remember? And inside this, there are these pores, correct? Germ pores. So this grain, this one, the intine that is there, okay, what happens is this will form a pollen tube, okay, on germination, and it will enter into one of these pores and it will form a tube over here. Are you understanding? That is how it goes from this pollen grain, it gets into the style and ovary. Okay, so where is the germ pores present? Germ pores are present on the exine of pollen grain. The contents of the pollen grain move into the pollen tube, isn't it? So this whatever is there over here, it enters, everything enters into the germ pore and it will enter into this pollen tube. The pollen tube grows through the stigma and style and reaches the ovary. Okay, so what it does, it starts growing. It keeps growing, it enters the style. Finally, from the style, it goes down like this and it enters the ovary. So it keeps growing. Is this clear till here? Yes? Any doubt over here?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So you understood how the pollen grain forms a pollen tube and gets in, right? It's through the germ pore and it keeps growing through the parts of the stigma, style, and ovary. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I actually wanted to do this, but okay, let us do this quickly. Yeah. So the pollen tube grows through the stigma and style and reaches the ovary. Now, in some plants, the pollen grains are shed at two-cell stage, that is vegetative cell and generative cell. Do you remember this vegetative and generative? Two-cell stage, three-cell stage. We have done this. Yes. So what is the two-cell stage? Two-cell stage is when within the pollen grain, you have the vegetative cell and you have the generative cell. Okay. And the three-cell stage is when this vegetative cell remains, but the generative cell will divide to form two male gametes. So the total comes up to 3. So it is the three-cell stage. I hope you remember this.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So in some plants, the pollen grains are shed or germinated at the two-celled stage, which is the vegetative and generative cell. The generative cell divides and forms two male gametes during growth of pollen tube in stigma. Okay. But in some plants, what happens is the pollen grains are shed at the three-cell stage, or they are germinated at the three-cell stage on the stigma, which means what? That the pollen tubes carry the two male gametes right from the beginning. Okay, so it's not like this, that during the growth of the pollen tube, then it divides and forms two male gametes and one vegetative cell. It's not like that. Right from the beginning itself, the division has already taken place. So it's already in the three-celled stage, okay, after germination. So you will have the vegetative cell and you will have the two male gametes. So it is already a three-celled stage. Do you understand this? There are two things that can happen here, okay? And yeah, so in some plants, this is what will happen, and in some plants, this is what will happen. Okay, one is in some plants, two-cell stage, which as the pollen tube is growing through the stigma and style, the generative cell will divide to form two male gametes. So this two plus, yeah, this 2 plus this 1 totally, okay, it will be 3. And in some plants, what will happen? Right at the beginning only, it is already in the 3-celled stage. Okay. Now, after reaching the ovary, the pollen tube enters the ovule through the micropyle. Okay. For this, okay, before that, this blue tubes that you can see here, right? This image, this is nothing but these are all pollen tubes. Okay. These are pollen tubes. See? So the pollen, the male gametes will be carried through these tubes and it will enter into the ovary. Now I want you to see the first diagram over here. Okay, here you have the stigma. Yes, you have the style, this long tube, and finally at the end you have the ovary. Okay, this is just to jog your memory. And within the ovary, can you see the ovule over here? Yes, this is the ovule. Okay, and if you what you say, if I zoom into this ovule, yes, this is what you get. This is the ovule diagram, right? This part, the down part over here, this is the ovule, which we have already seen. I hope you remember this. We have seen that 8 nucleated stage, 7-cell stage, and all of that within the ovule, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So after reaching, so see here, from the stigma, it goes to style, goes to ovary, and finally it enters the ovary to reach the ovule. So after reaching the ovary, pollen tube enters the ovule through the micropyle, okay, which is where this side, okay, micropyle. There, then this end, okay, not the antipodal, this end. Then enters one of the synergids through the filiform apparatus. Okay, can you see the synergids over here? 3 are there over here. Yes. So what happens is, now look at this red tube over here. I hope you can see my marker. Wait 1 minute. Let me just change the color. Can you see my marker over here, pointer? Yes, so this is the pollen grain. It forms a pollen tube. It enters the style, comes like this and reaches the ovary. Now it's entering the ovule through the micropyle. This is the micropylar end. Enters in over here and it gets into one of the synergids over here through the filiform apparatus. Yes,